The first time I saw Elena, she wasn't doing anything extraordinary. She was sitting on her porch, coffee cooling in her hands, staring out like she was waiting for something that never came. Her hair was loosely tied, strands escaping, the kind of detail most people wouldn't notice. But I did. I always noticed. I was 23, still stumbling through who I was, while she carried the weight of 46 years with a quiet elegance. To anyone else, she was just my neighbor. But to me, there was a pull I couldn't explain. A magnet, maybe. Or maybe it was just the way her silence said more than most people's words. That evening, I crossed over, half pretending I had a reason. "Your light's flickering again," I said, pointing to the porch lamp. She gave me a smile that wasn't quite a smile. "It does that, like it's trying to decide if it wants to shine or burn out." Her voice always carried layers. A warmth, a hesitation, and something brittle underneath. I leaned on the railing, pretending I was casual, though my chest was a storm. "Want me to take a look?" I asked. "You don't have to," she replied, though she shifted the coffee cup, making room like she expected me to stay anyway. I fixed the bulb. It was nothing, really, but when the porch lit steady again, she whispered, "You're the only one who notices things like that." Her words lingered heavier than they should have. Maybe because I'd been waiting for them without knowing it. Maybe because no one had ever said them to me before. The silence after stretched too long. I wanted to fill it, to tell her that I noticed everything about her. The way she tucked her hand under her elbow when she was cold. The way she avoided mirrors like they told a truth she didn't want to see. The way she exhaled before speaking, as if measuring how much of herself she could afford to give away. But instead, I laughed softly, awkwardly. Maybe I just have too much time on my hands. Her eyes lingered on me, longer than polite, long enough to make my throat dry. Then she looked away, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear like she hadn't been caught. The porch felt too small, the night air too heavy. I wanted to ask her why she always sat out here alone, what she waited for, who had failed her enough to leave her with that kind of quiet. But my tongue refused. So instead, I asked, "Do you ever get tired of pretending you're fine?" The words slipped before I could stop them. She froze, cup halfway to her lips. Slowly, she set it down. Her fingers trembled just enough for me to see. And then, in a voice so soft I almost missed it, she said, "You're the only one who understands." My chest tightened. I wanted to reach out, to close the space between us. But I didn't. Not yet. Not when her walls were still half standing. I swallowed hard, searching for something to say. Something that wouldn't scare her off. Something that wouldn't sound like the truth clawing at me. Before I could speak, the sudden buzz of her phone on the table cut through the night. The screen lit up, flashing a name that made her face pale. Her eyes met mine, wide, startled, vulnerable. And in that silence, I knew whatever I said next would change everything. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't have to. The way her shoulders stiffened, the way her lips pressed tight, told me enough. Someone from before. Someone who still had power over her. "Sorry," she said quickly, as if I'd accuse her of something. "It's nothing." I nodded, though I didn't believe it. The night had shifted. The porch light hummed steady, but the quiet between us grew heavier. I should have left. Any reasonable person would have said goodnight and walked back across the lawn. Instead, I stayed, because leaving would have meant I'd think about her all night, replaying that tremor in her hands. "You ever wish people just—" I hesitated, rubbing the back of my neck. "Didn't come back once they were gone?" Her eyes lifted to mine, sharp at first, then softening. More than I'll ever admit. The way she said it, like a confession whispered to a stranger at midnight, pulled something out of me. I wanted to ask about Daniel, but I didn't. She had walls, and I wasn't ready to break them down by force. Instead, I told her something I'd never planned to share. My last girlfriend left me for someone older, said I was too inexperienced. Like loving her wasn't enough if I didn't know what I was doing. Her lips parted, not quite a smile, not quite pity. "That's cruel." "Maybe true," I said quietly. She leaned back, gaze drifting over the street. "Funny. My husband said the opposite before he left. That I was too old. That he needed someone who could keep up. I blinked. You were married? She gave a humorless laugh. Almost 20 years. He walked out 3 summers ago. Guess he wanted his life to feel shiny again. The words cut, not because of him, but because of her tone, so matter-of-fact, like she'd rehearsed it for anyone who asked. Like it was safer to make it sound ordinary than admit the wreckage it left behind. Something inside me ached. Not pity. Something heavier. We sat in silence. She traced the rim of her coffee cup, and I caught myself staring at her hands. The faint wrinkles, the silver band of skin where a ring used to be. Hands that had built a life only to watch it crumble. I wondered if she noticed me noticing. I shouldn't tell you these things, she whispered finally. Why not? Because you're young. And I'm... She stopped, biting down on the word like it might break her teeth. Beautiful, I said before I could stop myself. Her breath hitched, barely audible. She turned toward me, eyes searching, unsure if I was mocking her or serious. The space between us shrank, not with movement, but with everything unspoken. And when her hand brushed mine, just lightly, like an accident she didn't bother to take back. Neither of us moved away. That small brush of her hand against mine should have been nothing. An accident. A slip neither of us needed to acknowledge. But the truth was I didn't move, and neither did she. For a moment, the air between us shifted. Heavy, electric. Her fingers lingered, trembling just enough for me to feel it. Then, just as quickly, she pulled back, curling her hand into her lap like it had betrayed her. We shouldn't, she whispered. I know, I said, but I didn't sound convinced. Her gaze darted away, to the street, to anywhere that wasn't me. I thought that was the end of it, until the sound of footsteps broke through the quiet. A voice called out, Mom! My stomach dropped. The door behind her opened, and a girl in her late teens stepped out, phone in hand, ponytail loose from what looked like late-night studying. She blinked at me, then at her mother. Elena? She asked, her tone caught between suspicion and curiosity. Elena straightened instantly, her body going rigid. Maya, you should be in bed. I heard voices. Maya's eyes flicked between us, lingering on how close we sat. I swallowed hard. Hey, Maya. Just, helping your mom with the porch light. Her brow arched. At midnight. Elena cut in quickly, her voice sharper than usual. Go inside. Something unspoken passed between mother and daughter, the kind of tension years in the making. Maya didn't argue, but the look she gave me before turning back into the house was enough. A mix of curiosity and doubt. The door closed. The silence that followed was louder than before. Elena let out a long, shaky breath. This is a mistake, she said, almost to herself. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. You don't believe that. Her eyes snapped to mine. You're young. She's my daughter. Do you realize what this looks like? Yes, I admitted. And I don't care. The words startled her. For a beat, neither of us moved. Then she shook her head, standing quickly, pacing the porch. You don't understand. People don't just look past things like this. They don't forgive them. I wanted to argue, to tell her that I didn't give a damn about people. But she was right, her daughter, her past, the whispers of neighbors. All of it hung over us like a storm waiting to break. And still I couldn't leave. When she finally sank back down beside me, her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. Daniel texted because he wants to talk. After 3 years, suddenly he's remembering I exist. Her voice cracked on the last word. She hated that it did. I studied her profile, the way her jaw clenched, the way her eyes glossed but refused to spill over. Do you want him back? She turned to me then, and for the first time I saw something raw in her eyes. No, but part of me still feels like I should. Like if I don't, it means I wasted 20 years of my life. I didn't think. I just reached out, covering her hand with mine. She flinched at first, then stilled. You didn't waste it, I said. He did. Her lips parted. a breath caught between protest and relief. Slowly, her hand relaxed under mine, and she didn't pull away. The porch was too quiet. My heart was too loud. For a second, I thought she'd let me close the space between us. That we'd stop pretending, stop dancing around this thing we'd both been circling. But she shook her head, whispering, "We can't." Her words said no, but her body stayed near, her hand still pressed under mine. The contradiction burned in the air. I leaned back slightly, giving her room, though every nerve in me screamed not to. "Then tell me to leave," I said. She didn't. Instead, she looked at me with something between fear and longing, a silent war in her eyes. And that silence said more than words ever could. The porch light flickered again, as if mocking us. We stayed like that, too close, too far, until the sound of Maya's footsteps returned. The door cracked open just enough for her to peek out. "Mom!" Elena jerked her hand from mine. "Go to bed," she said quickly, too quickly. Maya's eyes narrowed, but she closed the door without another word. Elena stood again, pacing, gripping her own arms. "This is spiraling out of control. Or it's just beginning," I said. She froze, staring at me, breath shallow. The kind of stare that dared me to take one more step, even as it begged me not to. And before either of us could move, her phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't flip it face down. She picked it up, stared at the screen, then slowly turned it toward me. The message on her phone glared at us like a warning. "I'm outside." Elena's face went pale. She pressed the screen to her chest as if hiding it could make it untrue. I stood before I could think. "Then let's go inside." "You don't have to see him." Her eyes flashed. "You don't get it. If he's here, he won't just leave." I wanted to tell her I'd stand between them, but the thought of Daniel still being able to pull her into chaos, after everything, clawed at me. "Why do you even answer his messages?" The words came sharper than I meant. Jealousy slipped through my tone before I could bury it. Her mouth opened, then closed. She gripped the railing, knuckles white. "Because once upon a time, I promised I would always answer. 20 years of building a life with someone doesn't disappear." Something inside me snapped. "And what about now? What about you, sitting out here every night, pretending you're fine? He left you, Elena. He doesn't get to walk back in like nothing happened." Her breath hitched at the way I said her name, the way it trembled out of me, not like a neighbor, but like someone who'd been holding her in his chest far too long. She turned then, eyes glassy, voice low. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't hate myself for still letting him have this power?" For a second, the weight of her shame filled the air between us, and I hated Daniel more than I thought possible. Without meaning to, I stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, faint and worn into her skin. My voice softened. "He doesn't deserve you. He never did." Her hand twitched, like she wanted to reach for me but forced herself not to. "You shouldn't say things like that." "I can't help it," I admitted. "I notice you. I see you. And The words caught, stuck in my throat. I wasn't sure if I was ready to lay them bare. She shook her head, biting her lip, eyes darting away. "Don't. Please." But her body betrayed her plea, leaning just slightly toward me, like gravity had chosen sides. The silence was unbearable. My heart hammered. Every nerve in me screamed to close the last inch, to finally break through the fragile line we'd been circling. And then headlights cut across the yard. A car pulled up at the curb, engine idling. Elena froze, her breath shallow. "It's him." I clenched my fists. "Then let me stay." Her eyes snapped to mine, full of panic, fear, and something deeper. "No. If he sees you here, I don't care." "You should," she whispered. "Because if he sees us, it's not just my mess anymore. It's yours too." We stood locked there, caught between the past pulling her back and the future I wanted to give her. The engine cut off. A car door slammed. Elena's hands trembled as she reached for me. Not fully, just enough to brush my arm, a touch desperate and fleeting. Her eyes begged what her lips couldn't say, "Go." But my feet wouldn't move. Because if I walked away now, I wasn't sure I could come back. The footsteps on the gravel grew louder, closer, and in that suspended moment, her hand lingering on my sleeve, my body refusing to leave, the sound of Daniel approaching. I knew everything was about to break. Daniel's footsteps grew closer, crunching against the gravel like they belonged here, like he still had the right. Elena's grip on my sleeve tightened. For a second, I thought she was begging me to stay. But then she whispered, "Please, go inside." I opened my mouth to argue, when another voice cut through the night. "Mom!" Maya stood in the doorway again, but this time she wasn't just curious. She was pale, her phone clutched tight to her chest. "Why is Dad texting me?" she asked. Elena went still. "What?" Maya's voice shook, almost breaking. "He says he wants to see me, that he's outside, that you'll never let him in." The air shattered. Daniel wasn't here for Elena, he was here for Maya. Elena's face drained of color. She turned toward the street, then back to her daughter, torn in two directions. "Maya, inside. Now." "No!" The girl's voice cracked, louder than before. "I have a right to talk to him. He's my father." The words cut deeper than Daniel's footsteps ever could. Elena flinched, as if the truth she'd been hiding had just been dragged into the open. I looked at her, searching her face, realizing I didn't know everything. "You never told me," I said quietly. Her eyes met mine, guilty and raw. "Because he's not just my past. He's still her father. And no matter how much I hate it, that tie doesn't break." The sound of Daniel's voice boomed from the curb. "Maya!" She turned toward the street, eyes wet. For a moment, I thought she'd run to him. But Elena caught her arm, fierce in a way I hadn't seen before. "You don't know what he's capable of." The night cracked with secrets. Maya stared at her mother, then at me, then back again. "You've been lying to me. About him. About everything." Elena's lips trembled, her grip faltering. "I was trying to protect you." Maya pulled free, retreating inside, slamming the door so hard the porch rattled. Silence fell, broken only by Daniel's voice calling again from the street. Elena's eyes closed, pain etched deep into every line of her face. "Do you see now?" she whispered. "This isn't just about you and me. Every step closer we take, someone gets hurt." For the first time, doubt clawed at me, not about what I felt for her, but about whether wanting her meant destroying everything else in her life. Her phone buzzed again in her hand. She looked at the screen, then back at me, eyes shimmering with something between apology and longing. And then she said the words I didn't expect. "If you stay, you're choosing this mess with me. All of it. No turning back." Daniel's shadow finally appeared at the edge of the porch light. His figure taller than I expected, voice deeper, carrying the arrogance of someone who never thought he'd lose. "Elena," he said, as if her name still belonged to him. She stood stiff, chin high, but I saw the tremor in her hands. "Go home, Daniel. I came for my daughter." His eyes cut toward the door where Maya had disappeared. "You don't get to keep her from me." Something in me boiled over. "You don't get to show up after 3 years and act like you care." Daniel's gaze snapped to me. For a second, he looked confused. Then his lip curled. "Who the hell are you?" I felt Elena flinch beside me. The question hung in the night like a blade. Who was I to her? Neighbor? Friend? Something more? She didn't answer fast enough. Daniel barked a laugh. "Of course. A boy. God, Elena. Is that what it's come to? Trading me for some kid who doesn't know what he wants yet." The words hit harder than fists. Not because of him, but because I saw how they landed on her. Shame flickered across her face, quick as lightning. Before I could speak, she did. Her voice cracked, but it carried. "Don't you dare. Don't you dare belittle me like that again. Not here. Not in front of him." Her words froze him. Froze me. Daniel sneered, but it didn't land the same way. Something in her had shifted. She wasn't just surviving him anymore. She was standing. Elena turned to me then, and for the first time she didn't hide. Her eyes were raw, wet, but steady. "He doesn't see me. Not really. He never did." I swallowed, my throat tight. My chest ached with everything I'd been holding back. I do. Her breath caught. For a second, the whole world stilled. Then Daniel's voice cut through, sharp and bitter. This isn't over. He turned, storming back to his car, slamming the door hard enough to shake the night. The engine roared. Headlights swept across us. Then he was gone. Silence. Elena's shoulders sagged, her strength draining now that the storm had passed. I reached for her, hesitant at first, then steady. She didn't pull away. For the first time, she let her head rest against me. You shouldn't have to carry this, she whispered. I don't care, I said softly. I'd rather carry it with you than stand on the outside pretending I don't feel what I feel. Her hand found mine, lacing our fingers together. Not perfect, not a promise, but real. The door creaked then, and Maya stood in the frame, eyes red from crying. She looked at me, then at her mother, her voice trembling. So, is he staying? The question hung in the air, fragile, terrifying, impossible to answer. Elena squeezed my hand once, then looked at me with eyes that said everything words couldn't. And for the first time, I felt certain she wasn't pushing me away. Not anymore. The house was finally quiet. Daniel's car was gone. His shadow peeled away from our lives, at least for tonight. Inside, the living room lights glowed soft and warm, but Elena stood by the window, staring into the dark as though she expected him to reappear. I sat on the edge of the couch, waiting, not pushing, just there. Maya had gone to her room, the sound of her door closing still echoing faintly in the air between us. I didn't blame her for needing space. She had every right to be angry, confused, scared. Elena exhaled, her breath shaky. She hates me. No, I said gently. She's hurt, but she doesn't hate you. Not when all you've ever done is try to protect her. Her shoulders rose, then dropped, the weight of years pressing down. I don't know if I can protect her anymore. I stood, moving closer, not touching her yet. Then let her see you, really see you. Not just the strong mother who keeps everything inside. Slowly, she turned, her eyes shimmering. And you? Do you see me? Or just the pieces you want to see? The question cracked me open. I swallowed hard. I see the woman who stays up late drinking coffee she forgets to finish. Who pretends she's fine when she's carrying more than anyone should. Who still says goodnight to a daughter who sometimes slams the door on her. I see all of it. And I don't want to look away. Her lips parted, then curved just slightly. Not a smile. Something softer. Something real. Silence lingered, heavy but not unbearable. This time, she didn't stop me when I reached for her hand. Her fingers trembled against mine, but she held on. In that fragile moment, it wasn't about what tomorrow would bring, or what the world outside would say. It was just us. Two people who had been circling each other through fear and shame, finally willing to meet in the middle. The sound of light footsteps broke the spell. Maya peeked from the hallway, arms crossed but eyes softer than before. She looked between us, her voice small. Are you staying? Elena froze, caught. But then she squeezed my hand tighter, and her answer came with quiet conviction. Yes, if that's all right with you. Maya didn't smile, but she didn't frown either. She just nodded once, then disappeared back into her room. Elena's breath escaped in a shudder. She looked at me with tears she no longer tried to hide. This isn't simple. It never will be. I nodded, pulling her gently closer. Simple's overrated. Her laugh was faint, wet with tears, but it was the first sound of relief I'd heard all night. And when she leaned into me, at last without hesitation, I knew the road ahead would be messy, unpredictable, but ours. C4.